living in the city for a good 20 years now. The people of the city have always been very important, and so helping with the ways I can was interesting to me and important to me. And just participating on a community level has been really inspiring or enjoyable or a good opportunity for me. There's a lot of opportunities because there's a lot of people that have a need for food or deal with food insecurity. My name is Andrew Butler. I'm a driver and I drive with Food Connect.
Food Connect is a Philadelphia born and raised hunger relief nonprofit organization. Its mission is to bridge the gap between surplus food and hunger. They do this through increasing food access with the on-ground delivery and logistics services based on their app technology. Food Connect focuses on rescuing food to redistribute to frontline community organizations serving meals to the hungry and providing last-mile home deliveries for individuals and families that are homebound and lack transportation options.
Hey, how you doing? This is Andrew with Food Connect. I have a delivery for you. I guess the most important thing that I'd want someone to know is just how many people ultimately you affect and you help throughout your day. A little bit really does go a long way. And when I kind of sit back and think about how many people this week, or even just in one day, I was able to help have some food for that day, it adds up really fast. And so that as a driver, that it gives you a good feeling, but it's also it's important work that's also being done.
I'm a volunteer with the Germantown Community Fridge.
I'm a volunteer with the Germantown Community Fridge also.
Food insecurity is such a huge issue in our city that just kind of help people, we're not solving world hunger here, but if we can help somebody save some money somewhere else instead of buying food, I think that's a win. Becoming part of a community, there's no better way than to go and meet the people that live in your community, and this is a great place to do it. I mean, it's a little cold today. I think there's not much traffic, but usually anytime you come here, you know, there's 3 or 4 community members that are shopping at the fridges, and you actually get a chance to meet them, talk about their needs, and just, you know, just meet the people, meet your neighbors. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to do it.
From
Grocery stores,
farmers, farms,
cafes,
yep,
just all kinds of businesses.
all kinds of businesses donate. So there's a whole wonderful growing network of people.
Just from speaking with community members, it sounds like everyone is super appreciative. It's a very valued resource for people in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And people really go out of the way to tell us that. So I think it's made a huge difference for a lot of people.
Yes.
We live in a society that treats us as consumers first and not humans necessarily. So I think we're really trying to change that narrative. You know, everyone is welcome here. Everyone belongs here. Everyone is good enough, no matter your circumstances.
Community fridges around the city are allowing individuals like Sophia and Susan to help play a role in the fight against food insecurity. Like they said, they're trying to break the narrative of not receiving help because everyone deserves food. It's a basic human right. One individual, Emily Fleshman, a former student at the University of Pennsylvania, now the program coordinator at Penn Food and Wellness Collaborative, is finding ways to combat food insecurity in an urban university environment.
People don't want to admit that there's food insecurity on a college campus, right? Like you think of colleges, especially elite institutions like Penn, and you think that there's a lot of privilege associated with that. There's a lot of wealth associated with that. So I think it's kind of counterintuitive for people to also believe that food insecurity does exist on campus. And so once you convince people that it does exist, you're kind of trying to figure out in how it looks, you know, in what ways it exists. It's an unpleasant problem to acknowledge, right? Like Penn has a lot of resources, time, staff dedicated to taking care of its students. So, you know, it's hard to admit that that's not working. And on the other side of that, you know, it can be really hard to reach students. They're super busy. What are we gonna do? Like give them more surveys? Like, you know, so it can be kind of hard to reach them and really understand like what's going on. I myself was a Figley student at Penn, which is first generation low income, and I experienced food insecurity while I was at Penn. And so for me, I wanted to come back because I didn't feel, when I graduated, I wanted to come back to the program because I just didn't feel like the work we were doing and that I wanted to do with it was done. Especially considering, you know, for the first year of our operation, like there weren't students on campus, and our whole reason for existing was students. So we kept having to kind of be really creative about, you know, what we were doing and how we were doing it. But when students came back, I think we really got rolling. And so I think that was a big motivation for me to stay. I learned later that I was not the only student experiencing that. And at the time, it really felt like I was. It felt like it was my fault that I wasn't like managing my finances carefully enough, or that I was spending too much on other things, which really wasn't the case. The case was, you know, it's a problem that we don't want to talk about. It was a problem that other students were experiencing, and I wish that, you know, some of that stigma hadn't been there, and I had been more aware of resources that there are on campus, because that was like unnecessary suffering that I went through. So we are a very small urban farm. Like even, you know, as you can imagine, like in urban areas, land is hard to come by. But even in that context, we're very small. I think the entire farm is like less than 1/3 of 1 acre. It is crazy. There's every day is, I know this is super cliche, but every day is really, really different. We have a hoop house, which is like a greenhouse, but it's not heated. So hoop houses just use like plastic and the sun to kind of like insulate a small area, so it's a little bit warmer than the field. And then we also have cold cover, which is like a thin white kind of covering you can put on top of beds, which mostly protects from pests, but also offers like some temperature insulation. So we have 4 25-foot beds growing right now. I believe it's like beets, Swiss chard, some snow peas, just very cold tolerant crops. So you can actually, there are some things that actually really like the cold and actually taste better after the first frost. So we are trying to be as close to year-round growing as we can. As you can imagine, our like biggest farming season is the summer. Well, there are no students here in the summertime. Like we have the bulk of our demand in the late fall, early winter. So we have to try to have a lot of cold tolerant crops and then try to find ways to preserve some of our summer crops so that they like hold us over through the winter. We try to keep, especially the farm, because it's kind of our own space and a space where students can come. We try to keep that space super inclusive. And for myself, I try to be really open about my own experiences. Like I try to be very transparent. I think for students to see like, okay, a person that has graduated from Penn, that is like working here, that is a staff member, if they've experienced this, like maybe it's okay for me to talk about it, especially if I'm like pretty open about it. Just to kind of like exemplify that it's not anything to be embarrassed about. It's a thing that happened, that wasn't my fault. So I think trying to like reiterate that to students and also kind of like role model that for them, I think is helpful. I think we're also talking about it a lot more now that COVID is kind of hit and a lot of people are experiencing things that they've never experienced before, and like kind of some struggles they've never dealt with before. So I do think it's becoming a little bit easier, but still challenging, definitely. So we actually have 3 distribution partners. So one is HUP, which is the Hospital of UPenn. They have an employee food bank set up by a cohort of nurses. We provide them with fresh produce. So we have Food Connect pick up the produce once a week and they deliver it straight there. And then that same day, they have the employee food pantry. So that's our first one. The second one is the GIC, which is the Greenfield Intercultural Center. It's essentially a house on campus for all of the Figley students. They have a ton of resources there. So they manage a program called Greenfield Greens. We, again, once a week distribute our produce through them. So they take it to the GIC and then pass it out to students from there. And then the third one is West Philly's chapter of Food Not Bombs Solidarity. So they do a no questions asked food distribution. And so a lot of other food pantries also, you have to kind of give your ID, your name. If you don't have a form of ID, a lot of times it's not accessible. So I think this place is really awesome. I think this is a very rewarding job and the rewards are pretty immediate. If I'm interacting with students a bunch, like that, their changed mood when they leave the farm, that's like an immediate reward that I get. I'm a sucker for instant gratification, so I think like it's been really awesome to have like that be pretty consistent all the way through.
So many people are food insecure in Philly, whether they can't afford the costs or simply do not have access to nutritious foods. The question as to why is what Share Food program, the largest leading food bank in the Philadelphia region, is trying to solve.
I would say Share is an amazing organization, right? We truly care, support, and put in the work to really provide the basic needs of just food to Philadelphians. I would say what's unique about us is that we think about the equity and the poverty that is around us and try to really support like the system that is historically keeping people in poverty in Philadelphia. So we try to fight against that. We try to make sure that the programs we offer, the work that we do is racially equitable, as well as just supporting the need around us, supporting the community need. So I really think Share takes an account of how historically the system in America has been and how it has impacted so many people, and trying to just provide a new system to really support that and to fight against it.
So this space is where some of our, we have volunteers that come in here to help pack these boxes for our programs. We have 2 different lines. You can see some of the boxes of the items that they actually pack around. So it's like an assembly line. We have about 10 to 15 people on the line.
The struggles would really be just hearing and witnessing our recipients in our community's problems. It is really hard just to hear the issues that people go on and deal with on a daily basis. And sometimes working in an organization like this, as large as we are, we have so many regulations, so many people we have to report to, and that can prevent us from supporting that person immediately. There's forms that they have to sign, there's places they have to go, in order to get the food. Some people lack the necessarily resources and support in order to even access these, the food that we provide. There's so many barriers for people just to receive services, and that sometimes can be difficult to navigate the hunger relief system. So just, knowing that and trying to still support them can be a little challenging at times, but I feel like at SHARE, we really try to find ways to accommodate people and really support them the best way we possibly can to reduce those barriers. One of the things that we did at SHARE is we started a home delivery program, and it's just expanding so largely. So people who aren't able to get out their homes, we can deliver it right to their door. And that's really something I would say that SHARE has done to truly, fight against those barriers that people may be uncomfortable sharing, or people don't necessarily know what they can do in order to access the resources. Yeah. We do try our best to be in the community, promoting what we offer, promoting our resources, and connecting with folks around the city in order to reach more Philadelphians. We really prioritize just equal access, really making it equitable for everyone who's in need to actually access the food. And I think just that educational piece and really going out into the community and connecting with people is the most important way to get our resources out there. We have a lot of community partners that do the same thing that we do. So with the work with our staff members and our community partners, hopefully no one will ever have to question where they can actually get food from and how they're going to eat that night. The unique thing about Philly is that there's so many different companies and agencies and people that truly cares. So it's interesting to see all the different people come together to fight against one cause. We have corporate groups that just truly are dedicated to this cause, and they show up to volunteer every Saturday. They donate, finances and items to us to make sure that we can really get things done in an efficient way. And I think that is amazing in its own, able to connect people that you really wouldn't connect with on a regular basis because of this cause. And I think that's really unique to Philly. Historically, SHARE has been one of the, staff-wise, small. I would say they started off before I even was onboarded with about 15 employees. So they really relied heavily on community support, volunteer support, partner support. And throughout the pandemic, they saw the need with our staff members working overtime and, working long hours just to make sure that they can support the increased need. We decided to hire more. So I think in the future, SHARE is going to really grow into a larger organization. Right now, we're up to close to 60 employees now. That's a huge change from 15. And that's just over the last year and a half or so. So I definitely see SHARE just expanding their program's reach, just really connect to the community more and provide more educational opportunities too. I think when people are educated about the social problem, they're able to empower themselves to fight against it. And I really feel like we're doing that, and we're on a path to expand that opportunity as well.